I just got a new kit from B-Kits. He added an extra sprocket for me, that's nice. But let's take this apart and see what it looks like. Now, so far, broken stud. So we'll see how good the return policy is. Yay! Alright, some ideas in motorized bicycles. Basically just some things I'm testing out. So yeah, try my ideas at your own risk. I am. But anyways, I bought this bike. I didn't want to totally remake everything. And it had the cable on top. And so what I did was make some brackets, and rather form-fitting. And then they have a raised area that'll go around the cable, providing like a support over top of the cable. And I have that in 3 spots. This is the original part of the mountain bike. But I'm going to put 1 piece of rubber and then tape it in with some electrical tape on all 3 of these, and then 1 full strip of rubber and put the gas tank on. I've got some of these that I'm going to put underneath the brackets that hold on the gas tank, because the bottom of this gas tank was getting shredded. I mean, not much longer and it would have gone through the gas tank. So I'm trying those ideas instead. Got one of these for $20. It came with the generator and the tail light, and I'll show you that generator in a sec. But first I wanted to mention, with this, it's got, I could turn this into some sort of a pressure release, this water bottle, and I could store gasoline in here too. That could be a sort of an extra thing of gasoline. That's just a tire pressure gauge with some neodymium magnets that's held on real good. But I'll show you the rest of that little kit: the headlight, the tail light, and then the generator I put right there. So that's the latest idea for this bike. Alright, so the replacement stud is in the mail. The guy at B-Kits, very good customer service, has it in the mail right away. I'll just replace that. So he explained that's an easy fix, and got the part in the mail, and so that was all cool. Everything else is pretty much as it should be. This isn't fitting in there. It's kind of a poor weld, made sort of a goober inside. So I just have to use a chainsaw file, clean that out, put some gas in there and rinse it out, so I don't have any metal flakes to mess things up. But that'll just take me a minute, no big deal. Got the brackets for the manifold, so I don't have to make them myself. And then there's everything else. Parts I probably won't use behind the tire, but he was nice enough to give me an option for sprockets here. And so there you go. That's from B-Kits, and seems like they have really nice customer service and all. Alright, one thing I'm doing here, I'm going to flat black this all out, and so I used flat black paint, and I'm using it as a primer. And it works pretty well. You can see where there's dents, where it's black. So I'm trying to get it to where it's either all smooth black or all smooth previous paint. And so it works pretty well as a primer, and then I'm going to paint this again, tape everything off and paint it. This bike had these little guides for the cables that were here and over here. Man, that was a pain to hacksaw off. But the fuel tank is going to cover this one, and then I'm going to put the Schwinn sticker over that one. I removed it from here and sanded all that down nice, but I'm going to flat black this out. So there's a little idea for that, and using spray paint as primer. Everything that's silver I'm going to sand so it has sort of a satin brushed steel look. I already did that to this, so it looks pretty good. Just started on this one. You can see it's still all pitted and whatnot. So that's what's going on here. Brushed satin aluminum, I imagine, and then all flat blacked out, and so that's where we are on this project. Here's something you can do. You can file down the engine mount where it mounts to the frame so that you get a perfect fit, but you can also lower the engine a little bit this way if you have to. So there's that idea. Alright, and if your spark plug is real loose on there, I mean, there's a little thing that pinches on the threads of the end of the spark plug, but still, if it's loose, it's kind of just annoying. This is on the real tight now. I just put a little piece of rubber that fitted inside of this housing, so it goes between the spark plug and the end of this cover, and that worked real well. So that's something you can do, kind of tighten things up a bit. Another thing I like to use is just wire. There's some wire, and then I'm going around this old screw for a water bottle mount, but yeah, it's made a circle and then a circle around the wires, and it's holding them in place perfectly. I make little wire washers, and they work pretty good. This tank, I redid this under here, and it all turned out great, but the tank, I accidentally dropped this, and I didn't have a wire washer here, and that's where it became unconnected. But where I had these little wire washers, it stayed connected perfectly. My back brake, it was not working. It was getting pinched. I was going to wear holes through my gas tank because of the person who had installed it previously. Now you'll see back brake works perfect. And the three little metal bridges I made, taped them in, and then a layer of rubber on top of that. It worked perfect. And actually my throttle cable that goes on the other side kind of made a spacer for the cable next to it underneath the rubber, you know, despite having the three little bridges of metal I made. So that worked out great. But a little circle of wire right there to just hold things together. So I like using wire, and as far as making cables go under the gas tank, man, getting this off with a hacksaw is a pain in the ass. Got to get this one off, and then I'm going to take this little thing that the cables ran through, and I'm going to mount it on the side so the cables run where the gas tank doesn't touch. But if you can help it, buy a bike that doesn't have that. That's kind of a pain. Let's see, what else? Here's another thing you can do if you need some space for your air filter. Just take a grinder, grind down that edge. That'll give you almost another ½ inch of clearance, and it's just the air intake hole, so it doesn't make any difference. But I think it kind of looks a little better that way than the stock way. So there's that idea. You could also grind down the spacer and control the amount of space that provides as you're trying to put your engine in a bike with somewhat of a small frame like this. But I'll show you when the engine's in there. I'd recommend, if you get one of these black engines, to sand the black paint off of this intake where your carburetor goes, because if you just shove it on there, I don't know if you can see this, but look at all the black paint fragments that are now inside my clean carburetor. But I'm going to clean this out and sand that off a little better, but there's a little tip for you. Alright, after getting this mount alright, the way I want it, I go to put on the muffler, and it won't fit. It won't even go on these studs here. You can see it won't fit flush right now. So I'm kind of halfway through this process. I put another gasket on there just to make so I didn't have to tighten it down quite as far. Then I made these holes a little bigger. That gave me enough play that it'll now go on the bike. The next thing I'm going to do is take my drill, when I put it in the hole, then I'm going to turn my drill at an angle. So I'm going to basically wallow out this hole at a specific angle, both holes, and I'm thinking that that should give me enough clearance to fit this up to get this on the bike. I could also maybe try and give this a little bend or just a little millimeter of a dent, but I think wallowing out these holes, I still got a lot of meat to play with. That's going to get this muffler on the bike. But lots of things to learn on this bike. Yay. Alright, so I got this to sit flat finally, but then the pedal was hitting this muffler. So what you can do is, see, I got this play here. It needs to go in, and then you'll look, if I wallow this hole up and this hole down, that'll give me more twist. So in addition to making the holes bigger so that it could fit around this big ass frame, I also had to wallow them in, this one up and this one down, so that I could get my muffler out of the way of the pedal. So yeah, the muffler is a bit of a hurdle here, but we're closing in on it. And the best thing I could say when building one of these bikes is to start off with the right bike. You know, it's a very small triangle because it's got this slanted upper bar. It's nothing at all like this bike where I've got tons of space on the top. So you'll want a bike like that. Don't do the coaster brake. Make sure you got hand brakes. Don't get the type of bike with cables mounted on the frame. Have the cables just off the frame. Front shocks are a good idea. Shifters that aren't these kind of shifters, but the levers, you can even put those anywhere on the bike actually. So not a funky handlebar, but just a straight bar. So straight bar, levers, front shock, not a big thick frame, regular size frame, full size frame with the bar going horizontally across the top. Hand brakes, not coaster brakes. And if you do all those things, if you pick the right bike before trying to install a kit, man, it's going to save you hours and hours and hours. But you might not learn as much. So let's see how many more tips present themselves for you guys as I finish this build. Alright, so you're hooking up the throttle. You already securely mounted your carburetor, and you need to get out that cylinder. It's very difficult to get out, so it's best to turn this upside down, take the pieces out, then mount it on here. But you can take some needle nose pliers, wrap a little piece of rubber around your needle nose pliers, stick them in the cylinder, and then open the pliers, and then that'll make it tight in there with the rubber, and you can pull it right out. So that's a little trick to get that out. And I made another video on assembling one of these kits, but I didn't show this assembled. So let me use both my hands to do that, and I'll show you that real quick. Alright, so here you go. First you put this end cap piece for the throttle on there. You have this needle, and the very end of the needle is a little clip, and you'll notice there's notches on your needle, and you can adjust how deep this needle goes. Kind of something to do for altitude. Now there's a little, I don't think you can see it, there's a little piece of metal with a gap, and you got to put that metal on top of the pin, get the gap so it lines up with this groove. Then all you have to do is put your spring on your cable and get this cable end piece into there, like so, inside the spring. And so that's how that's assembled. When you put it in the carburetor, there's a little pin that you have to align so that that pin slides through this groove as you assemble your throttle. So I'm going to use two hands again to do that, but that's how you assemble your throttle. I don't think I showed that in the previous video, but there you go. Alright, how to cut the chain. Take a file and file all around this edge, and then take a punch, and you got to really hit it because this is a heavy duty chain, and pop out that stud that's in there, and then this will come off and the whole thing will come apart. So that's what you do. Don't forget, you have basically two types. You have kind of the inner link and an outer link. Inner link, outer link, inner link, outer link. So your master link is like an outer link. So when you measure your chain, don't forget to notice you have to go from sort of like an inner link to the master link to an inner link to make it work. Alrighty, so that's how you cut the chain. Alright, so here's my bracket for my muffler, and it was the type of bracket where it had two pieces that went together to make two round parts. And the smaller round part was supposed to go over the frame, but my frame is really big and round, so the bracket wouldn't work. So what you can do is keep this circle, cut and file that edge, and just straighten out this piece, and then you can't see from this side, but then it's bent with a hole drilled in it, and then just take a punch so that you can get your drill to make a nice hole in the frame, and use a self-tapping screw, and that'll be all set. So that's how I modified the bracket my kit came with for my muffler. Alright, so let's say you have your bracket, and there is no way that that bracket's going to work and poke through those holes on both sides. And this metal's really thick, so it'd be hard to bend and mess with. There's not enough of this sticking out anyways, even if no matter how much I bend this. So I know some of this is kind of common knowledge to some people, but I also know some people would just kind of give up. There's what I was looking for. But I took a piece of metal, you know, thick enough, you know, and I cut a section out of it. Then I just used a tool like that. Then drilled some holes in it, file down your edges, and where'd my bracket go? Made my own bracket, something like that. So, you know, it's common sense to a lot of people, but I also know a lot of people who would just sort of be like, oh, this kit doesn't work, I want to return it. Sometimes you gotta manufacture your own parts for these. But there's that answer if you didn't already know. Alright, last little tip for you before we get into breaking in the engines and stuff. Put a piece of cardboard under your muffler after you've been riding your bike, if you're going to put it on a porch or somewhere nice, because they do leak oil. It's just part of the deal with those guys. But I'll show you the three bikes real quick that I've gone through and put together. Got this one here, and the main thing I did was put these three bridges in so that my back brake works great. Kind of went through and just tightened everything up on this bike, put on a muffler mount and whatnot. Then we have the Deluxe Cruiser, got the light, I'm going to get a speedometer for it, but most of the stuff I had to fix was in the chain guard on the bicycle side because I have the engine nice and low. There's that bike. And then here's the one that I just finished. This one turned out real cool, all silver and black. But I put the tensioner up here on the top. It made less of an angle in the chain. And then I think my air filter turned out cool. Cut at an angle like that. Got some loom, and then it's wired to the cup holder nut, so it keeps it away from the muffler, which was a real pain to install. But there's that completed project. let's go ahead and mix up some gas and break these motors in. Alright, so one idea is to take out the spark plug and drip a little bit of oil in here, just enough to kind of coat things as the cylinder moves, and just pedal around with the pedals, just moving the piston up and down without the engine even on. And so that's one idea. I don't know if that's just kind of a needed step or not, but at least then you'd see how you know, how everything functioned on this. And you'll notice this mount here, no rubber, so I'm going to compare those two ideas for you guys, rubber versus no rubber. I'll get back to you on that. But back on track here, breaking in the engine, we talked about mixing the gas. You can put a little oil in here and pedal it around. But then when you ride the bike for the first time, very short rides, don't go full throttle, don't go over 20, low speed, low idle, you don't rev it up, only go about 10 minutes, and then stop, wait till the engine cools down. It'll take like a half an hour. And so little 10-minute rides, you're not letting anything heat up, and you are also not going very fast or revving it up. And do that several times, you know, use up at least a tank of gas, doing it that way, and then add a little less oil, maybe an ounce less oil. If you were doing the 8 ounces to a gallon, go to 7. Same thing, short rides, run another tank through it, and slowly start building up. You'll kind of hear too, you'll hear the engine running a little more smooth and things like that. And so that's basically it. There's just a break-in period where you need to run a few gallons through it. Slowly you're working your way to 4 ounces in a gallon from 8, and doing short little rides, not getting the thing hot at all. All right, well, I'll show you how to start one of these up and drive it. All right, so let's talk about breaking in the engine. We put together these bikes, and now we want to break in the engine. I did a first video, which was about this bike and the basics of how to just put one of these kits together. I did use very thin rubber on the motor there. It's kind of controversial. But in that video we didn't get to breaking in the engine or riding these, how to ride these, and how to mix the gas. And so I'm going to wrap up this video with that information. I tried to put some tips in this video as I finished up the build on this one. But if you watch my first video and this video, should have complete information on what to do with these bikes. I did another video on a propane-assisted gas motorized bike, so I want to check out that one too. It's kind of interesting. But basically, you want to use some high-quality oil, and you have to put oil in the gas, because that's how it lubricates the engine, because there's not crankcase oil in the engine. So that's what's up with these 2-cycle engines. Tons of different methods of how to go from the first mix down to the mix that you're going to run forever. And starting off, pretty much everyone agrees you want to do 8 ounces in 1 gallon, and that's a 16-to-1 ratio. Then go to 7 ounces in a gallon, which would be a 20-to-1 ratio, and work your way down to 4 ounces in a gallon that you continually run your engine at. So the amount of time that you take at 8 ounces to 7 to 6 to 5 to 4, you know, that's kind of up for debate. All right, let's mix some gas. Alright, sometimes on these you'll get a little sort of air bubble vapor lock situation here. Watch when I open up my gas can. Now, Alright, sometimes you'll get a little vapor lock in here, so all you need to do, this pitcock actually doesn't work, but make sure your fuel arrow is pointing the way it should, and then open up your gas tank, and that should help you alleviate your problem with the vapor lock there. Other than that, when you are every time before you ride your bike, give it a little shake. Shake it around, and you're shaking up the oil and the gas there a little bit. Last thing, when you're walking downstairs, don't let your muffler hit on the stairs, but let's go ride. Alright, let's see how I do riding this bike with and holding the camera at the same time. Well, to start it, we're going to pull in the clutch and push this pin. And I'm going to start pedaling, and I'm just going to let out the clutch. Alright, once I pop the clutch, it started, I put in the clutch and it's idling. Right there where you adjust the idle for oxygen adjuster right there. And there you go. Starting, stopping, and driving.